Hi everybody, hope you're keeping well. Raison here again with my second edition of Match Memories. I hope you all like the first one. It's good to reminisce, and I got a lot of positive feedback. So like I said in the first one, that I was going to continue and do a few more. And today I'm actually going to go over my first Senior World Championships. The build up to it and everything that happened, and as per normal, my dad hasn't let me down. He's got stacks of memorabilia. I picked out a couple of photos that I want to show you that were in the press before then, and back then we used to get a lot more coverage through the press as the England team, and I just think with the success of the domestic events, the big money events, has taken a little bit of a shine off of the England setup and that. But you know, I'm talking back in '98. This is so quite a little while ago. But obviously the England thing then, you know, it was the pinnacle. It was the biggest and the best thing. And like I say, the big money events have taken the shine off it a bit as far as the amount of publicity and that we get. But all in all, you know, like, we can't complain. We still get fantastic coverage. You might notice I've had a little bit of a lockdown haircut as well. Obviously can't get to the barbers, so I took it upon myself to do it, and I don't think I've got a future as a barber. But anyway, on with the more important thing, which is talking about fishing. Obviously we can't get out there, fish any matches or anything at the moment, so you know, this is the next best thing to talk about it. And even better, in my opinion, is to reminisce. A lot of the anglers that are going to be watching this, you know, you've been fishing for years and years and years, and I'm sure you'll agree that when you actually look back and go over a few things, it is quite enjoyable to reminisce. But anyway, we're going back to 1998 now, and in the summer of '98, I actually got a call up to go to Portugal. Again, it was a little bit of a surprise, going to a big event like that. I'd already fished a couple of friendlies. I'd actually won the first day of a friendly in Italy. I did draw end peg on the river, but managed to put together double figures of chub, and I think that, along with a few other things, sort of, you know, got me the call. Obviously by this time I won a few decent matches in that, and been competing at a very high level. And like I said in the last one, by you know, it's no secret that is what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to force my way in the team. I wanted to fish for England, you know, and it was utmost importance to me. So getting the call to go to Portugal, again, I've got a few photos here. But it's the River Ria, I think it was. R-A-I-A, I think, however that's pronounced. But it turned into an out-and-out waggler match. The team was Tom Pickering, Dave Harrell, Steve Gardner, Bob Nudd, Alan and myself. Unfortunately, you know, being young, I hadn't done a lot of that sort of fishing, and you're in amongst, you know, world class anglers. And like I say, at the time I was 23. So very young as far as, you know, experience is concerned, especially, you know, fishing abroad. It's a different animal entirely. And for those of you that have experienced, I know you know, you'll know exactly what I mean. But fishing at world level is completely different barrel of fish. Excuse the pun. So, like I say, during the week I caught a few fish, didn't catch enough, and didn't get in the first day. But Dick Clegg then was the manager, along with Mark Addy. This was the first year that Mark Addy had actually been assigned as like Dick Clegg's right hand man. And again, that is a little bit of a twist again. But Portugal, the first day I didn't fish, like I say, and I was down to fish the second day, and Dick said to me, you know, no matter what, you're going to fish the second day. Now I actually ran Stevie's section the first day, and Stevie was lowest point scorer. I think was 7th, which is still a fantastic result. The team had won the first day. And I remember, you know, like saying to Dick Clegg on the radio, look, keep the team the same. You know, you can't change a winning team. And, you know, I think after, you know, a few exchanges of words, and, you know, it was obvious to me at the time that Dick Clegg wanted me to fish the second day. I wanted to fish, but I felt like the team would be better. You know, they've all fished on the Saturday. They're going to be better tomorrow. The team's won. Stevie's 7th, and that was our lowest score. So by no means did he deserve to be dropped whatsoever, and watched him the first day. He fished a fantastic match. So the team stayed the same, and I always remember, again, little things, and I can remember Dick saying to me after the second day, well, when are you actually going to fish? This was your chance, you know, and I'm thinking, oh no, I've blown this. But we won, and, you know, the dust settled out, we got back home. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. Back then I didn't have a tackle room outside in my garden. I had one of the spare rooms in my house was just tackle everywhere, and I was sat there one day. Again, I can't even remember if I don't think I had a mobile phone back then. I know I had one in Spain the following year, definitely. But I don't think I had one then, because the house phone rang. And just walked into the lounge, picked the phone up, and it was Mark Addy, saying that, you know, part of his job now is to obviously introduce new anglers, look for new anglers, and he said that, you know, himself and Dick were very impressed with my attitude and everything, and what I actually did, and was, you know, mixed in with the anglers as well, which is a massive part of international fishing. You've got to gel. You know, you've got to be mates, you've got to be friends. It's very difficult when you go away for 2 weeks and you're virtually living, you know, with 5, 6 other guys, and it's very easy for, you know, if there's a little bit of bad feeling in the camp, it can completely ruin the whole week. You know, and it's very important for team morale to have the right guys that get on well. You have a laugh, you have a joke, but also you're very, you know, 100% deadly serious when it comes to fishing. So, like I say, Mark Addy's picked me up, rung me up, picked me up. I don't think he could pick me up at the moment, the amount of food and that I'm eating, but he rung me up, picked the phone up, and he basically said to me, you know, like, do you want to come September to the World Championships in Croatia? And it was like, you know, yeah, of course I do, yeah, definitely, blah, 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 blah. Put the phone down, and I just sat there for a minute thinking, did that actually... was that Mark Addy, or was that one of my mates winding me up? Or so? But then obviously Stevie rung me saying that he knew and that Mark was going to ring me, blah, 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 blah. I'd spoken to Mark, obviously. And back then, you know, like, it was a case of, I think literally that was a month before the match. So it's like, right, tackle room, rigs, hooks, line, slider rods. Never really done a lot of slider fishing before then. But luckily, with the experience and that we had in the team, and we were going to go for 2 weeks. So the way it works, the World Championships, is it wasn't so strict back then, but there was still the rules in place. So you could go and practice the venue. The week before the match is the official practice. So Monday to Friday you practice once or twice a day. Match Saturday, Sunday, home Monday, Sunday night. But you could go, we used to go for 2 weeks. So we practiced unofficially the week before so that we were ready for the official practice week. And the rules are you've got to be 500 metres from the match length. But like I say, back then, 1998, the rules weren't quite as strict as they are now. And we managed to fish on the far bank of the rowing course and had a fantastic, you know, week's practice. But going back to, you know, the preparation side of it, obviously we, you know, sponsored by Drennan at the time. So it's a case of, you know, I had to get the Drennan luggage, the Drennan box, Obviously by this time I was on board with Daiwa, Tolerant X pole, Daiwa whisker rods. You know, it's just, when you look back at the tackle and that, fantastic tackle, still top tackle now. But it's just come on and advanced so much over the years. 14.5 metre pole limit as well. So we knew a little bit about the venue before we went. I think the Welsh had been out on a little bit of a recce. Eric Humphreys had been out there. It was mainly skimmers, bream, carp, grass carp, a fish that Tostolovici it's called, but it's obviously more commonly known now as a silver carp. There was a few of them in there, and a lot of bleak, small catfish, small roach. So we knew a little bit about it, so a little bit of prep. But the beauty is when you go for 2 weeks, is you can do the prep the first week in the evenings. You know, you go and fish on, say, on the Monday, catch a few fish. Oh yeah, I think these floats or these hooks or this elastic. You go back to the hotel and you can prepare it. But like I say, before we actually left, at the time, Drennan team were actually supplied cars by Vauxhall, and we actually, the first year I went, I've just got a couple of little notes here that I've made, but the first year I went, me and Stevie went in a Astra van that Vauxhall kindly gave us. I think it was Smith Motors in Peterborough. One of Bob Nudd's very good friends decided to sponsor us, and Bob always got the fastest, most powerfulest car and the nicest. I could never work that out, but hey ho, you know, being the main man in the team, I suppose he pulled rank, and while we were all in little Astra vans, Bob was cruising round in like a 4-litre Amiga estate with all full leather and air conditioning, but hey ho, that's the way it goes. But fantastic time, you know, to be sponsored with vehicles and obviously with Drennan. Everything was just a little bit surreal to me. You know, I'm going away on a World Championships with, you know, for want of a, you know, with my angling heroes, people that I sort of sat behind and I've studied and I've worshipped and I've hung on every single word they've said. You know, and the team that actually was going was myself and Stevie in one van. You had Dave Vincent and Alan travelling together, and then obviously Bob and Kim Milson was fishing at the time. What a fantastic angler he was. So like I say, you can imagine 23 years old, never really driven abroad. Was sort of hoping Stevie was going to do most of the driving, but it was anything but probably the opposite. So 23 years old, before sat-navs, anything like that, driving across Europe into Croatia. At the time it was very daunting, but looking back, what a fantastic experience. And obviously with all the travelling I've done since, very important experience gained at a young age. So fantastic. But we actually arrived at the rowing course, Juran rowing course I think it was, the national rowing course in Croatia. Lovely hotel. Got to the venue, and we quickly saw where the match length was. It was all on one bank, 5 sections, 33 teams this year, and it was before the sections were split, so the points were 1 to 33. So there's a massive points gap, you know, between doing well and doing bad. Obviously, you know, team-wise, we were thinking, you know, most World Championships are 150, 60 points, that sort of thing. So, you know, you have to try and do as well as possible. But on arrival at the rowing course, we actually looked across the far bank, and there was like a restaurant type place and a nice grass bank coming down. So we drove around there, well away from the match length. The match length's on the opposite bank now as we were sat there, and this was our home really for the week. But a lot of important lessons were learnt there. Not only don't get drunk in the restaurant behind and stumble down the bank and fall on your pole, Bob. But one of the funniest things I've ever seen, by the way. But no, we, like I say, we were on the far bank. We could all practice, and some valuable lessons were learnt. We obviously having a go at slider fishing, bleak fishing. But one thing became apparent, and we all sat in the same pegs for the first 2 or 3 days. And every day in this Pacific peg, I'd just hook massive fish. Big carp, grass carp, these silver carp, get some in and snapped, and no one else was really hooking them. So after a couple of days, I said, look, let's swap round, because I'm fed up with every time a float goes under that, you know, playing a fish for half hour or getting broke. So we swapped round, fed again, and I hooked these big fish again. And Alan was the first person to pick up on it, and I was mixing my ground bait at the time, very wet. Done a lot of fishing by this time, you know, bloodworm fishing. Always mix my ground bait on the wet side so it's nice and sticky. balled it in, and other anglers, especially Alan, tended to mix their ground bait a lot drier, and for some reason these bigger fish liked it, and that we carried on into the following week. So like I say, the first practice week, the unofficial practice week, came and went. Stevie actually caught one of the silver carp on a bolognese rod, because when you were fishing for bleak, they come in, they're like plankton eaters, they come in with their mouth open through a cloud and just like hoover everything up. And one evening we could see these when we were at the top of the bank, and Stevie set a bolognese rod up about a foot deep with a little dibber and a massive hook, and we were throwing this cloud in around the float, and sure enough one of these big dark shapes came through, and Stevie was actually in the local paper. I think he was almost on the front page holding this fish. Guy came and took a picture. But again, fantastic memories. Now, a lot of venues, these silver carp aren't allowed. Like when we fished a few years ago in Bulgaria, they're not allowed, but back then, you know, they were allowed, and they did count, and they were massive, some of them, like 20, 30 pound, but there was some smaller ones as well. So, like I say, they were catchable at times. You caught an odd one, but you lost most of them because they were foul hook, because they weren't actually picking the bait up. They were more, like I say, just hoovering everything up, and you tended to foul hook them. But like I say, there's a little bit of a twist again, something that I will go into when we get onto the match days. But like I say, so the first unofficial week came and went. We were quite happy. There was a lot of fish in there. But we also realised, and I remember it was Stevie that sort of said it to me one evening. He said, you know, Monday, Tuesday might not be so good. The first day or two we fished on the far bank, it was a little bit dodgy. It just got better and better and better as the fish came in and found the bait. And this was definitely the case. I mean, on the Monday morning, we had a little bit of a disaster again, because a lot of the bait was held up at the border. Back then, a lot of checks and this, that and the other. And I remember the first day we didn't have a lot of bait as far as bloodworm and that were concerned. And on the first day, I think Kim won the practice with just over a kilo little fish, and there wasn't a lot caught. But the second day, again, I've got a couple of notes down here. The second day, Stevie caught a grass carp. He had about 7 kilos, had 2 or 3 skimmers and some catfish, but he caught a grass carp. And again, I can remember Stevie saying to me, this could be the start of a real good match. And like I say, on the following day, again, you know, Stevie's words were, you know, came true. On the Wednesday, I actually had 21 kilos of grass carp, normal carp, bream. It was just ridiculous, just like being back at Willow Park in the day. Long pole, big fish, you know, and it was just fantastic. And by this time I started to think to myself, because I always had it in the back of my mind, you know, I'm the youngest, I'm the least experienced, you know, I'm not really sure if the management are taking me, you know, I'm definitely going to be reserved the first day. Maybe that's what they're thinking, but my attitude at the time was, well, if I catch enough and keep beating everybody and doing well, they can't leave me out. And on the Thursday, again, caught some skimmers, no carp this time. We were a bit further down the road, of course. I had about 6 kilo, I think, and won the session again. And this is when I thought to myself, you know, I think I'm going to be fishing Saturday. On the last day, again, we caught a few fish, and the plan really started coming together. And when, you know, the talk on the bank at the time, I can remember, you know, Mark Addy was there, Mark Downs was there, my dad was there by this time, obviously come to watch, various different people, and the word on the bank was that England are doing really well. And obviously on the Friday afternoon, we have the opening ceremony. So you fish for 3 hours on the Friday morning, go to the opening ceremony. And at the time, again, I didn't really know John Desk that well, and he's since turned into, you know, one of my best friends in England. But I can remember he came up to our table and we sat there, and he's like, yes, I think bleak could be important. You know, it's possible fishing the long pole, 8-9 metres deep, that you can catch 20 an hour, and 60 bleak will be over a kilo. You know, there were these carp and that there, but by this time they'd spread out and it was just odd ones, and we were thinking, you know, kilo and a half is going to be a good weight. Odd catfish, odd roach, probably 4 or 5 kilos to win the section, but to get in that top 8 or 9 places, which is where you wanted to be, you know, you weren't going to need a massive weight. Only a 3-hour match as well. You know, it wasn't like a massively long match. But I can remember Deske saying, you know, 20 bleak, and I thought, well, this morning I fished for him for an hour and caught 52. So, you know, like, and we all started talking, and it was like, yeah, bleak could well be important. But going on from that, the team was then picked. Dave Vincent didn't fish the first day, and that's when it all sort of hit home to me and kicked in. Got a few little notes here of how we did. Again, it's a long time ago, so I've gone through all my paperwork and I've got a good memory. I can still remember a lot of it. And like I say, Dave didn't fish the first day, and this is when it all started. Oh my God, I'm fishing a World Championships tomorrow. And I can remember we had a meal on the Friday night after the banquet and the opening ceremony, had a meeting, went back to the room, and I just couldn't sleep. I was just like so focused on the job in hand, so, you know, in the zone, that it was very hard for me to come out of it and just go to sleep and wake up in the morning. And I can remember when my dad came over, I think my dad arrived on the Wednesday or the Thursday, but he actually bought a newspaper and that for me just to catch up with the football news and the this and that and everything. And I must have read every page 10 times that night because I didn't sleep a wink. So the first day, the draw comes out, mixing a ground bait up early. I get to my peg. Again, the plan was to ball it long, fire some ground bait out on the slider line, and obviously have a bleak line as well. And started on the long pole. I think I caught a little roach, and it was apparent with the runners and that we got, you know, at the time we had a lot of people coming out, experienced, very good anglers on the bank. You know, I had my dad with me, he fantastic bank runner, and it was apparent early on in the match that it was fishing unbelievably hard. So I switched to the bleak line, saw me start catching quite well, and they were quite dumpy bleak. Didn't need many to rattle up a decent weight. And I ended up, I think, with about 1 kilo 700 or 600. Actually, I might have it on this bit of paper here. No, 1 kilo 100 I had. It was just fantastic, you know, like, and all the time you're thinking, well, surely 33 peg section, that's not going to do that well. And I actually ended up 5th out of 33. I've got the points written down here. Alan was 2nd, 5 kilo. Bob 4th, 2 kilo. Stevie 5th, 1 kilo 170. I had a kilo. Kim was 15th with 900 grams, and we actually totaled 30 points the first day, which was fantastic. Winning it after the first day, and more importantly, the relief for me to actually come out of a World Championships having done well, fished a nice match, kept my head under pressure and that, you know, it was just, the relief was unbelievable. And I literally got back to the hotel room and completely collapsed on the bed for a good 4 or 5 hours, but then woke up, and it was like when you wake up and you're not really sure, and it's like then you come to the realisation of, oh my God, we're winning the World Championship, I've got to do it again tomorrow. Where's my gear? Where's my hooks? Where's my elastic? I've got, and again that night I got a couple of hours sleep, but I can remember we had this balcony in the room, and I was sitting out there at about 3 o'clock in the morning, just going over everything in my mind, everything I've got to do. Is this ready? Is that ready? Right, yeah, everything. And we were soon into Sunday. Obviously Dave Vincent took Kim's place, and you know, if the pressure of fishing a World Championships when you're 23, the expectation, not want to let anyone down, and all this isn't enough. When I arrived at my peg on the second day, I was greeted with John Desk at the next peg. Now, obviously, John still is a match fishing legend, but at this particular time, he was, you know, kingpin in Europe. You know, he was the man. He was winning everything in France, and, you know, just an angler that you'd sort of heard of and seen and spoke to, but never really, you know, thought that he would be a friend, or, you know, like, it was just someone that you just sort of saw from afar. And it's, oh, that's John Desk over there, you know, like. But I'd seen John and met John a few times before, and while we were setting up, and it's quite a well-known story, a lot of people know it, but John actually called me over. Now, the areas are taped off, so there's a tape in between each peg. And I went over and I'm like, you okay, John? He said, yes. He says, I've looked at your bleak rigs and they're all too heavy. Your floats are too big, the line's too thick, you will not catch bleak. And this was the start of a little mind game. And, you know, I can remember Kim was my runner that day. And again, started on the long pole, caught a few fish, little roach, I think I had a little catfish, went on to bleak and started catching quite well. And every hour Kim would shout down, yeah, you've got 72 bleak, John's got 10. You know, and he'd make sure that John heard this, because he knew that John was trying to get at me before the match. But again, you know, back then I was only 23, but, you know, it took a lot to sort of rile me or rattle me. And I managed, you know, I kept my head. I had 1 kilo 700, came fourth in the section. John, I think, had 200 or 300 grams, and, you know, just did no good. And we actually ended up with 31 points. Again, for I think we won it again the second day. Alan had won his section and become world champion. I think that was the year that it was 3 on the trot. Unbelievable feat. You know, like, you're never ever gonna sort of repeat that again. But it's difficult when you try to explain to people that, you know, in the space of a year or two, I'd gone from watching all my angling heroes to actually fishing with them, and then sort of depending on me to not let them down. The second day again, like I say, I've got the points written down here. Alan was obviously first with 4 kilo. Stevie third with 3 kilo. I was fourth. Dave Vincent was 14th with around about 1 kilo. And I think Bob was 9th. So fantastic. And also Bob was next to Fujar that day, and they had a right ding-dong. But Bob did brilliantly, as he always did. I think he caught about 1 kilo of bleak, and just fantastic. But and again, we totaled 31 points with a total of 61. Enough to win the World Championship. So you can imagine now it's just complete relief. But we've won the World Championships, double gold for Alan. Absolutely fantastic. Obviously we had the drive home and that, but that went so quick, you know, we were just so happy. A few beers that night to celebrate. And to, you know, to come home as you know, team world champions and that, just fantastic, and just something that I would never swap. But again, a lot of lessons learned that particular week. Different ways of mixing ground bait up. I only ever mixed my ground bait up wet, so it was sticky and it would go in. Brilliant for big fish, never really made a cloud, didn't draw little fish in. But obviously now I'd learnt that there are ways of putting your ground bait in softer, drier, cloudier. You know, did a lot of bleak fishing. And I remember coming back from there thinking my slider fishing wasn't, you know, as good as, say, Alan or Stevie. And it's something I remember going out that later that year on a local lake here, Mitchett Farm Lake. Not Mitchett Farm Lake, Mitchett Lake, which is really deep in areas, and fishing a slider, just, you know, catching fish, casting, firing ground bait out, and just trying to better myself at that. But like I say, we won with 61 points. France was second with 84. So just goes to show, you know, back then in those big sections of 33, you know, 15th isn't a bad result. It's halfway. You know, it's still good. You know, so even, you know, even though Dave, I think, was 14th or 15th, Kim 14th or 15th, you know, they still did their job from bad areas. So, like I say, fantastic event. Obviously made all the better for the fact that we won. I've got a few pictures here. This is actually my dad's scrapbook. England event, September 95 to September 2005. And that, I think, is one of the best pictures. Stevie netting a grass carp on the slider. The second day, welcome to our planet. Absolutely fantastic. I can remember looking at that and thinking, wow, you know, this team, you know, the papers have really, again there, if I hold that up, just bear with me. I'll try and get it so that you can see double gold there for Alan. And again, a picture of Dick Clegg and Alan. Another picture there of Stevie netting his grass carp. But you just flick through it, you know, Alan Scott on hat-trick hero. Fantastic. You know, you know, to be honest, I'm absolutely flabbergasted I've won again. World, you know, record breaking 3 times. But again, you know, Alan being Alan, you know, the first thing he's mentioned is that I did well in practice and I fitted into the team. You know, very humble, very, you know. And here they've got, if I just take this out, don't want to mess up my dad's collection, but this is the sort of thing the papers used to do, a complete rundown on each angler and what they've actually done. You know, my one, for instance, there was a lot of pressure. I'm just pleased to come out of it in one piece. I practised all week on bleak and got fine-tuned. I knew I would beat Descay on day 2 after an hour if he didn't catch a big fish. So little things. You've got Mark Addy's diary there. Picture of me there swinging a bleak in on the second day. Brilliant memories to look back on. Let's just get this back in there, so I don't get told off by my dad for muddling up his one of his scrapbooks. But, you know, a lot of other good things came out of it. Not just did I learn a lot and it, you know, get my foot on the international ladder, but it, you know, I gained the trust of the management. I can only thank, you know, Dick Clegg, Mark Addy, Mark Downs and that, you know, to have the sort of confidence to draft me in when I was 23 and put me, you know, on the, you know, in the lion's den, so to speak. But many good things have came out of that first year for me. Obviously, you know, the experience of just driving abroad, you know, to a foreign country, fishing a foreign venue for fish that basically unheard of, you know, in England. My friendship with Descay then just went on and on and on. I remember him saying to me after the match when we were packing up, fantastic, well done. You know, that's the mark of a, you know, not just a gentleman, but a truly great angler that's fished at the top and won almost everything. You know, when they get beat, that they can come up and say. And John actually invited me later that year to go to Spain, which I did do. And, you know, I went with him for a good 10 or 12 years. Again, learnt so much. And just, you know, through drawing next to him that second day, the friendship that's gone on from there, right to this day. Spoke to John a couple of days ago. He's in his house in France by the census factory, just keeping self-isolated. He's fine. So, yeah, it just absolutely fantastic. Obviously, after that, you know, I got in the next year in Spain. We didn't win. I did okay myself. I think I was about 8th overall. But it just went on from there. Just fantastic times. Good to look back over the memories. And what a fantastic team. You know, Bob's actually said, I've had a little read through all of this, and Bob said that it was just a pleasure to be involved in what he thinks is the best England team ever to grace the banks. And, you know, to think that I was a part of that as a 23-year-old lad was just unbelievable. But all in all, I hope you've liked this second edition of Match Memories. I'm going to do a couple more. Also, I'm going to do a couple of little informational videos to follow. I'm definitely going to do one on my slider rig that I've fine-tuned over the last few years, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I'd just like to end this second edition of Match Memories by saying to everyone that, you know, I hope you're keeping well, keeping yourselves busy, and like I say, just waiting out, keeping your head down and just waiting out for when we can get out on the bank again. I'm sure it won't be too long, and I look forward to seeing you all then. Take care. Bye bye.